Well, it was a somewhat busy deadline for the Anaheim Ducks. I'll talk about every single one of those trades and give my overall grade on this year's trade line on this live edition of Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
You're Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi there. Welcome to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jason JD Hernandez. I've been covering hockey for over a decade. Thank you for making this your first listen of the day. Also, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On today to get started. So it's been a while since I've been on here. Just to peel back the curtain, I left immediately after Friday's live show on the trade deadline. So I left immediately after that. Went up to the Bay Area for a few days. Came back, had some more extra work to do, and actually doing public address tonight for the Firebirds. So this might be a little bit rushed here, a little bit unexpected, but we're just going to go live and just go for it today. Just one take, no stops. That's what you're getting today. So no angry Jason, but I have my notes here. We're going to talk about trade deadline, and then the final segment, I'll have some thoughts on Mike Stothers, and I have a few thoughts on Mike Stothers on this particular show. So to get started, the trade deadline came and went, and to say the least, it was underwhelming for the Ducks. Is that the best word to use? Maybe underwhelming. I've seen some people say disappointed in it. I went the whole 6-hour drive up thinking about it, and a lot of the drive back down thinking about that even more. And the best word that I can come up with for this trade deadline was confounding, because we had some expectations going into this trade deadline that the Ducks were at least going to get a second round pick. At the least, I don't want to say that's what we were hoping for. I think that's what Ducks fans were, frankly, expecting out of this trade deadline. And to not get anything better than a third, it is disappointing. It really is. So let's go through the beginning from the last couple weeks. The Josiah Slavin trade. This was an AHL trade. The San Diego Gulls traded Hunter Drew to the Rockford Ice Hogs in exchange for Josiah Slavin. Now, I would say that one was a pretty decent trade. It has had immediate returns for the Anaheim Ducks, or for the San Diego Gulls, rather, because he's already scored and had a game-winning goal for San Diego. So immediately that one looks good on paper for the Gulls. Hunter Drew, probably going to get a lot more playing time with Rockford as we go down the line, and might see a lot more time in the playoffs. I'll get to that in a second. Hunter Drew, I think, has been the consummate professional for this Ducks organization. He started off as a defenseman and came up rather quickly in the ranks. You see guys like Hunter Drew just work hard and work harder and harder. And he was one of the hardest working guys on that Gulls team for the past 4 seasons. And during the whole pandemic, that's where the change really happened, because the Gulls were short so many guys up front. And I think it was, I want to say this was Joel Bouchard. No, not Joel Bouchard. This was Coach Dineen, who said, why don't we try you on offense? Maybe move up to forward. Okay. So he moves up to forward and does a pretty good job at it. And there's been no looking back for Hunter Drew. And you saw the improvement this season in San Diego. So to see him go, it is a shame. So next trade I want to get to is the Henry Thrun signing rights trade. This was reported way early on that Henry Thrun was going to become a free agent and he was not going to sign with the Anaheim Ducks. Now, he had until about June to make that official. Otherwise, they lose him completely. Anaheim said, no, we can't do that. We can't just let him go for nothing. So this was a good trade. Pat Verbeek worked his magic and somehow got a third round pick for Henry Thrun, who was drafted in the fourth round years ago. So that turned a fourth round pick to a third round pick that the Ducks will have next season. Overall, I hate to say this, that was probably among the best trades, the second best trade in this deadline was the one for Henry Thrun. Who knew? So he goes to San Jose. Now, I mentioned Hunter Drew and that he might see some playoff time. That's because of what happened a few days ago. This was the double trade with the Chicago Blackhawks organization. This one hurts. The Ducks did get Dylan Sakura from the Chicago Blackhawks / Rockford IceHogs. Sakura he's been average for the Rockford IceHogs this season. According to Sean O'Brien's tableau, Dylan Sakura is right in the middle, 50th percentile, third line guy. Not going to move the needle a whole lot, even though he will see some time in the top 6 for San Diego. He doesn't really move the needle for me, especially considering what the goals gave up. This hurts. Logan Nyhov and Max Galode, they leave the San Diego organization. Okay, that's whatever. Then you add in the leading goal scorer at the time in the American Hockey League, Rocco Grimaldi. That hurts, folks. To lose someone of that caliber absolutely hurts. Rocco Grimaldi was probably the only guy that would play all 200 feet, even though he is short in stature, big in heart, big moments. He had a hat trick not that long ago in a loss. He almost single-handedly got the goals, a couple of wins, and did single-handedly get them at least 2 or 3 victories this season. Without Grimaldi, the goals would be even worse than where they are right now. Think about that. The goals are already last place in the league, and they could have been worse without Grimaldi. That's saying a lot. And now he goes to the Chicago Blackhawks organization. Galode, Nyhov, Grimaldi, Hunter Drew, all going to the Rockford IceHogs, who are in a playoff spot right now. I know the Chicago Wolves are creeping up on them very fast, but they are stacked right now with some good complementary players. And with Rocco Grimaldi, Rockford could move up to the third or second spot. Iowa's kind of slowing down a little bit, and the Iowa Wild have Coachella Valley coming up. So I could see Rocco Grimaldi getting some decent playoff time. They might even win a round or two. I don't know about the conference finals, but we could see Rocco Grimaldi lead the IceHogs to at least a round victory. Good for him. Good for him. Better situation, and also a better situation for him to possibly break through on the Blackhawks roster if they decide to retain him. I still think it was a fairly bad deal that Grimaldi did not get a contract with the Anaheim Ducks. He was great during the preseason, great during training camp. I thought he was going to get signed by Anaheim, and he wasn't. And he didn't get immediately signed by San Diego. It took a little bit. I hope he succeeds in Rockford. He frankly deserves it. All right, we're going to go over the other trades after this brief intermission, so stay locked in. But first, I want to talk to you guys about FanDuel Sportsbook. Now, we're excited at the Locked On Podcast Network because FanDuel is now our partner, our official sports book of the Locked On Podcast Network. And hey, it's a great time to get FanDuel because new customers get a no-sweat first bet of up to $1,000. That's $1,000 in bonus bets if your first bet. FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, secure, and super easy to use, and you can bet on everything from the money line to point scorers to, having some same game parlays, and there's some pretty good ones out there. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet of up to $1,000 back in bonus bets when you go to fanduel.com/locked on. That's fanduel.com/locked on. By the way, make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA and the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. And please gamble responsibly. Well, welcome back to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Once again, you're locked in with Jason JD Hernandez, and we've got a few more trades to get to. If you're here live, and I see a couple people watching right now, hey, you know what? Welcome to the live show. As soon as this show is done, I'll be heading off. It'll be right back to the audio side. So thanks for tuning in. All right. Kind of digging the background music a little bit. Let's talk about the other trades that took place. There's a couple of weird ones here. On trade deadline day, I'll admit I was a little bit rushed because I was going up to San Jose. Then I saw a couple trades come in. There was the Austin Strands trade. I hated this trade. I'll just go right out and say it. I hated this trade. Austin Strand is one of the good guys on the team and someone that you absolutely want on your squad. The Ducks did get back Chase Prisky from the Rochester Amerks. Oh boy. Out of all the players on the Amerks, I think there might have been some better players that the Ducks could have gone after. They could have gone after so many different guys from Buffalo. And for me personally, if I thought there was going to be a trade with the Sabres, I was still hopeful that it would have been, I don't know, someone like John Gibson going there for a pick, some good prospects, and that's what they wind up with. Ooh, I gotta tell you, that one hurts, folks. That one really hurts. So to look at some of the, I guess, analytics for this new player, Chase Prisky, not exactly moving the needle either for the Amerks. Chase Prisky, he's a guy. Is that the best way to put it? Yeah, that's the best way to put it. He is a guy that kind of was just, a third pairing. I shouldn't say third pairing. Not like he's a bottom player. He's a bottom player. That's what he is. Yeah. Not, a Brandon Bureau or a Brett Murray or a Yuri Kulich or a Linus Weisbach or even, a Mason Jobst. Nope. That's who they went after. It is what it is. Now, Chase Prisky is playing for the Gulls and looking okay. But I feel like there could have been better players. So that's what this is. So Austin Strand going to the Amerks, Chase Prisky coming to the Gulls. Now there were two more trades that happened that afternoon. And this first one, I was fortunately still at home. And we knew this trade was going to happen. Dmitry Kulikov going to the Pittsburgh Penguins because, of course, the Ducks are going to trade with the Penguins because, of course. Half salary retained. Kulikov goes to the Penguins in exchange for Brock McGinn and a third-round pick in 2024. You know what? I don't hate that trade. I think this was the best trade of the deadline. It's already saying a lot if I said that was the best trade of the deadline. Kulikov getting a third and the following player getting a fourth speaks loudly. Kulikov began on the third line, eventually moved his way up to the first line with Cam Fowler. And Kulikov looked decent in that role. That's the best word I can use. He looked decent there. Of course, the Ducks defense as a whole has not been good. Kulikov was one of those guys that you can kind of count on more than other players. So losing him on the blue line does hurt a bit. The Ducks do get back Brock McGinn, who's had a bit of a week. He was waived by the Penguins, sent down to Wilkes-Barre Scranton, was practicing for the outdoor game. He was expected to play in that outdoor game with the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins against the Cleveland Monsters. And then as he's practicing, I kid you not, he was already out there on the outdoor rink, and he got traded to the Anaheim Ducks / San Diego Gulls. Yeah, I gotta say, that's gotta hurt. If you're Brock McGinn, you go from being on a playoff caliber team to the Ducks / Gulls. Disgruntled, one way to put it. I'll leave it at that. The third round pick is for 2024, a draft that is not nearly going to be as deep as this year's draft. So that's what the Ducks got back. A pick for next year. Can you tell I'm already a little bit about this? Then the following trade happened while I was driving. This is the one that stuck in my craw a little bit. As expected, the Ducks did deal John Klingberg to the Minnesota Wild with half salary retained for a 4th round pick in 2025. Andre Suster, who is back for the 3rd time, by the way. Yes, Suster is back. You thought you could get rid of him? Not so fast. And Nikita Nesterenko. So this was a juniors deal. That was not a trade that we thought was going to happen. If they were going to get players back, Suster and Nesterenko don't really move the needle for me there either. So overall, the two trades that I liked was the Kulikov trade and the Thrun trade. That's it. Every other trade, the Hunter Drew trade, Josiah Slavin, that one's okay. The trades with the Rockford Ice Hogs, giving up Rocco Grimaldi's never good, so that one's already immediately not a good trade. The Austin Strand trade, definitely not up there. As far as Klingberg, talking with a couple of people that work in the NHL, and one of them actually talked with Shang Peng from San Jose Sports Now, and he basically told me the market just wasn't there for Klingberg this year. Klingberg was expected or hoped to get a first if he was having a great season. Even though he had 9 points in 9 games, the last 9 games, I was hopeful that he would get a second. Notice my words. I was hopeful, but I was not expecting it. Then what? You get 2 guys that are like meh, and you get a 4th round pick 2 years from now. So where do I grade the Ducks on the trade deadline? I'm certainly not going to give it an F because there was a couple of good deals there. They at least got something for Klingberg and Kulikov. It's nowhere near an A or a B. And if I'm going to be brutally honest, I'm going to give this trade deadline a D+. Straight up D+. I was expecting more on this deadline. Even though the market wasn't there, I feel like the Ducks could have squeezed a little bit out of whoever was going to get Klingberg, but they waited till the last minute. They got desperate. And because they got desperate, that's when these trades happen. That noise you heard was my dog barreling in. Yeah, she's not happy either. My dog isn't happy that those trades were made. So once again, D+ grade. All right, we're going to head into the second intermission. I'll have some thoughts on Stutts after this second intermission. So stay locked in. But first, I want to talk to you guys about Built Bar, which is the best tasting protein bar ever. And folks, if you haven't tried Built Bar yet, what are you waiting for? Built Bar is packed with at least 17 grams of protein, only 4 grams of sugar, and only on average about 150 calories. And there's some good flavors out there, including cookies and cream, one of my favorites. The churro puff, still the GOAT. The maple donut puff, also very delicious. You could find it at your local Walmart, your local Sam's Club, or if you want to try some of these newfangled flavors, head over to built.com right now. Use promo code LOCKEDON15 to get 15% off your next order of Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar ever. And I really mean that. Ever, ever. Crap. Welcome back to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jason JD Hernandez, and I'm just going to have this disclaimer out right now. This is only going to be video, no audio of this show today. So we're just going to leave this as is. All right. I've got some thoughts on Mike Stothers. For those of you that might know, I've been covering minor league hockey for a long time. AHL since 2015, since the AHL moved to SoCal in the 2015-2016 season. And I covered a lot of Ontario Reign games, a lot of San Diego Gulls games. And immediately there was a rivalry between Mike Stothers, the coach of the Reign, and Dallas Eakins, coach of the San Diego Gulls. And that first season was pretty contentious. You know, there's a photo, I forget who has it, but one of my friends has this. There's a photo of Mike Stothers just raising his fists in the air, just yelling, ah, because they had beaten the San Diego Gulls in a tough best-of-7 series back in 2016. And it was contentious at first. But after that first year, the mutual respect between both coaches grew and grew. 2017, they met in the playoffs again. That was a 5-game series for the San Diego Gulls in which they bested Ontario. And then we go into 2018. This is where both coaches had much more respect for each other. And this is when things, for me, really changed. Dallas Eakins, for what it's worth, is one of the classiest guys out there. Whether you love him or hate him, look, I'm just going to tell you straight. Dallas Eakins off the ice is all class, without question. And one of my favorite memories from that 2018 season happened April 7th, 2018. This was not long after the tragic Humboldt Broncos bus accident up in Canada. And this just shook the hockey world. We're approaching the 5-year anniversary of that next month. Actually, a month from yesterday, I think. We're approaching 5 years. And I still have this. This is the pin that I got that day, April 7th, when the Ontario Reign played the San Diego Gulls. Both Stutts and Coach Eakins got together before the game, and they said, we need to send a message. And they did. They sent what I thought was an extremely powerful message, one that I will never forget. And I don't know if this will show on video, but I'm going to try my best. So that's a photo of pre-game. You can see the Broncos logo up top. Ontario Reign and San Diego Gulls players were alternating around the circle before the game. It's a long, long moment of silence. And you probably cannot tell in this picture, but up close, you know, right about there, Stutts and Dallas standing next to each other, for a few minutes, just talking back and forth. And I remember after the game, that's what I remember the most. After the game, both coaches were out there. Dallas Eakins gave an impassioned speech to the fans. I know it's a little bit blurry there. There we go. Coach Eakins had some terrific words to say after the game. And even Stutts was right there, right along the bench. And I could see Stutts just applauding. That's when the respect was at its highest. And it was never the same after that. Now there's a mutual respect. And I remember Stothers saying, for Coach Eakins to spearhead this meant the world to him. And even Stothers at the time said, that's one of the classiest gestures that I've ever seen. For Stutts to say that that was one of the classiest gestures ever, that says a lot. But if anybody knows class, it's Mike Stothers. Now, he was a coach for the Ontario Reign for a long time and always exuded class and dignity and respect. And that's what I love about Coach Stothers. And just to go personal, but not too personal here, I got to interact with Stothers. I actually met Stothers back in 2015. This was before any games were played, where we had a dinner together. And just getting to talk to Stutts for a little bit, that was a treat. Getting to know him as a human being was a treat. And to see how he's progressed through the ranks. You know, he played hockey, head coach in the AHL, now assistant coach for the Ducks. He really moved his way up and worked his butt off. He really worked his butt off to get to where he is. And I love that about Stutts. One of my favorite things about him. And now he's got this battle. He has got a very long battle ahead of him. For those that didn't hear, Mike Stothers was diagnosed with stage 3 melanoma of the lymph node. I gotta say, that hurts. That hurts hearing that, because I remember Mike Stothers bringing his dog to the arena. This was years ago. But that's too personal. I won't talk about that here. But for Stutts to be going through this right now, you know, it's a shame. It's just a shame. And if there's anybody that can pull through this, it's absolutely Mike Stothers. And I know Dallas Eakins, you know, supporting him 1,000%. And here's what Stothers had to say. I want to thank all my family, quote, I want to thank all my family, friends, and the Ducks organization, led by our owners, Henry and Susan Samueli, for their incredible support during this difficult period. If I could share one simple message to you all, listen to your body. If you notice something unusual or don't feel like yourself, consult a doctor immediately. Please do not wait. It could be the best decision you ever make. End quote. So Stothers also said that he may have to go on immunotherapy first to shrink things up a little bit, and then the surgery afterwards. And it's a bit of a gray area, but he's going to fight and see how this goes. He wasn't on the bench last week. He does intend to still work as much as possible over the next 6 weeks, right up to when the season ends. I won't expect him on the bench every game, but, you know, we've all got to be hopeful for Stutts. And if it's one thing, like he said, you know, just get checked. Go to a doctor, get checked. If you think that something is wrong with you, get checked immediately. And, you know, something else that Stutts said that I liked. My first thought was, like everything I handle, is just get it out. Just rip it out. Let's move on. End quote. He's going to tough this out. He's going to win this battle. And, you know, I know the Ducks owners called him one of the toughest and finest people in hockey, and I agree 1,000%. Not only is he one of the toughest people in hockey, as I mentioned, he is one of the classiest people in hockey and a great hockey mind. And for me personally, one of the kindest gentlemen I've ever met. So I will speak on for myself. Stutts, I hope you pull through this. I know you will pull through this. And can't wait to see you again. Can't wait. And I will be sure to give you a hearty handshake and a hug, knowing that you're going to pull through this. All right. I know it's kind of a somber way to end this, but that's where we're going to end it for this live podcast. Once again, thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget, this podcast is free and available across all platforms, including Stitcher, Spotify, Odyssey, etc., etc. You could follow me on Twitter at StimpyJD. There it is. The show's Twitter's at LO_Ducks. You could email me at lockedonanaheimducks@gmail.com. Once again, thank you all for your continued support. It is greatly appreciated. And if you're heading to Coachella Valley tonight, I'll see you there. Thanks so much, guys. For Locked On Anaheim Ducks, I'm Jason J.D. Hernandez saying have a great rest of the afternoon. Please remember to be safe out there, be kind to one another, and Ducks fly together.